Okay, so you've had a chance to look at the film, The Power of a Sign, and I wanted to kind of go over this with you so you kind of have an idea. So I kind of did this backwards. Like, we looked at it, we watched the film, the short film, and now I want to kind of go back in and kind of show you the different elements of this, how the storyboarding process works out with this piece. So the exposition, if you'll notice, we meet the man in the suit. That's kind of how they set us up. The mood, it starts out with sound and to sort of set the stage and the setting. Notice that we hear the birds and the wind rustling the leaves. We don't necessarily hear all the people and all the activity going on. We hear what essentially the blind man hears, and we don't realize he's blind until later on, but we see the plaza with all the people and the different things going on, but we actually hear the birds chirping, and they use the mood and style. The style would be an example, would be like the perspective, the camera angles. We see the camera angles, we see things from the blind man's point of view, his perspective. And so that's what is used to kind of set us up with the exposition. We meet the man in the suit. Then we move on into kind of, we're still a little bit lost if you kind of watch this the first time, but we move into sort of the first complication. We see the sign. We don't really know what it says, I don't think, at this point, although I can't remember exactly. Oops. But we realize that the man is blind. We see a dirty, ratty shoe to actually start it off. Mood, the sound is still a big part of this, and we start to kind of see this character, right? Then we move into another complication where we notice the camera angles sort of show us the beauty and the surroundings in contrast with the blind man kind of sitting there, and style and setting is used to kind of make that come alive. Then, major crisis. This is what leads us to the climax. This is what is solved by the climax. The man in suit is saddened by this. He shows compassion. Mood, sound is used again to sort of tell this story. Climax. This is the major event. This is what solves the problem and starts us to sort of end the film. But the man in suit rewrites this sign, and people begin to show compassion. And the style here is huge. The perspective, the camera angle is definitely used to sort of make this piece pop and come alive. Then it ends with the blind man receives the money and compassion, and he becomes happy and he feels blessed. Mood, so the music speeds up at this point. It gets to be sort of happier, and that's what helps us sort of see this piece and it comes alive. And you'll notice too that there was a translation, there was some text that was used like a couple of different times to sort of help us. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the storyboarding process should look like for you. Back to the end, so we've kind of finished really what this whole process should look like. So number one, you got to pick your tech tool at this point. Number two, you need to start clipping images, music to your file folders. Most of you have done that on your H drive. You need to, at this point, if you've not already began, you need to be creating that digital narrative. And number four, you need to save if you can. I know in the Google search store, I'm not sure you can save it, but you can definitely save what you type in as far as your storyboarding and your searches. And you need to wait for further directions in sharing this with me. And we also need to edit this at some point too. And the last part of this is we need to go back to your narrative essay, which I will explain that in another video. But if you have your digital narrative done at this point, you need to make sure that you've saved it, or you at least know what you need to type in for that. And you, at this point, need to kind of go back in maybe and do some editing with this. Make sure if you have text that you've used all the right elements and you've used good words and you've spelled things right, because you're going to have to go in and fix it, because I'm not going to settle for a less than stellar product with this, especially because we've had the time to work on it. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a great idea on how to get this done.